Greetings. Thank you for coming back to the Spirit Walker channel. I really appreciate your presence here with us discussing these very interesting topics. Today we're going to talk about the Mandela Effect and the 100 monkey phenomenon. This is really very interesting, and it shows that the work that you have to do to incorporate or include other people into the discussion about the Mandela Effect may not really be what you're thinking. The work may actually be easier than what you're thinking. So let's discuss this. What is the 100 monkey phenomenon? Basically, the whole thing started with an experiment that was done in 1952 and 1958 in Japan with snow monkeys. A few researchers they were throwing sweet potatoes to the monkeys, and they noted that the potatoes were actually not really very edible because they were covered in sand, and then one particular monkey decided to wash the potatoes, and of course the potatoes would taste much better. And some of the monkeys saw that and started doing the same. And then the number of monkeys that started washing the potatoes started increasing. And then slowly we have more monkeys washing their potatoes before eating them, and the whole thing started growing. Now, one thing that was quite freaky was that at some stage the number is not exactly right, but the number is not exact, but it's symbolically taken to be 99 monkeys. When the 100th monkey, symbolically speaking, learned to wash their potatoes in the water before eating, then all monkeys of that community started doing the same. And the freaky thing is, not only monkeys from that particular island, not only had they started doing the same, but also monkeys from adjoining islands as well. And there was absolutely no way for the monkeys to communicate to monkeys from distant islands about how to do the process of cleaning the potatoes. So what really happened in that case was, and scientists started speculating, was that at some stage the number of individuals that developed that new knowledge grew to a point where that information or that new knowledge rose to become part of the collective consciousness of that particular society. And so this is something that is quite interesting, because it goes to show that a society is not just a collection of individuals, but a society has a consciousness, has a collective consciousness that is fed by what the individuals discover, by what the individuals develop, but also feeds back information to individuals, even though specific individuals hadn't physically come into contact with that information. So there's just a download of information from this collective consciousness into individuals that had not had physical contact with that information before. So this is absolutely fascinating. Now, you could think that this is a once-off idea, that this was an isolated case, it was a freak of nature, but that is not the case. that is definitely not the case, because what you see is that this idea, the phenomenon of the 100 monkey phenomenon is absolutely consistent with some other theories and some other observations. So, for example, it is absolutely consistent with Carl Jung's theory of the superconscious. So Carl Jung was this psychologist, which is almost like a metaphysical psychologist, and he realized that there is, in the same way that there is a subconscious, a person has a subconscious, which is all of the information that that person has pushed down below and is not willing to accept consciously. The person also has a superconscious, which is a set of information that belongs to that person, but is also shared among other members of that society or other members of humanity. So Carl Jung called this superconscious, and this is exactly the idea of the collective consciousness that we come across in the 100th monkey phenomenon. Now, the superconscious mind is a superphysical mind. It's beyond the four-dimensional time and space. And it's a higher spiritual reality. So it's completely outside the four-dimensional matrix of time and space. And it can also, it receives different names. It can also be known as the higher self or the oversoul. Now, another example is the exponentiality of the power of calling. So this is a bit of a mouthful, but I'll explain what this is, and it's something that is not really that complicated. This comes from the law of one, and they say that as more people focus their attention on something, the power of that collective focus of attention grows exponentially. And for some reason, it's the power of two. So, for example, if one person focus their attention on calling for help from higher entities, the result is, of course, just one person calling. Two people call, then you're going to have a result of 2 to the power of 2, which is the equivalent to 4 people calling. If 3 people call for assistance, then you're going to have the result of 2 raised to the power of 3, which is 8 people calling. If, for example, 4 people get together and meditate and call for assistance, the result will be 2 to the power of 4, which is 16. So those 4 people will have the calling power of 16 people. And this is actually quite interesting because it shows that when people collectively focus their minds on something, the result, the power, the mental power, the mental influence of that focusing of attention on the Akashic records and on the mental universe is exponential. It grows at an extremely rapid rate. Now, for example, you could if you do the maths, you would see that 2 raised to the power of 33. It's around 32 point something. Equals 7 billion. Now, this suggests that if only 32 people got together and meditated and asked for assistance, these 33 people would be equivalent to the entire population of the planet of 7 billion people calling for that assistance. Now, this is not really true because you have to account for the fact that some negative people will not be calling, therefore you wouldn't have the entire the equation of 2 raised to the power of 33 equaling 7 billion, because you have to account for all of the negative people that do not want the planet to evolve as well. So there is an offsetting factor in that sense. But the idea is that the idea is not really the actual numbers. The idea is that as a collective gets together to focus on something, the result is far, far greater than just the sum of the parts. So this idea of the 100th monkey phenomenon is consistent with Carl Jung's theory of the superconscious, is consistent with the exponentiality of the power of calling as described by the law of one, and it's consistent also with the New Testament in the Bible when Jesus said, when 2 or more of you get together in my name, so will I be there as well. So Jesus was referring to this phenomenon where when a collective of consciousnesses get together in unison and decide to visualize something, to mentalize something, the result is far greater than the sum of the parts. Now, what does that have to do with the Mandela effect? Now, the thing is, a lot of people have been discussing, okay, how do I convince my neighbor, how do I convince my brother, my sister, my parents that the Mandela effect is real? We need to convince the whole humanity that the Mandela effect is real. Now, the thing is that we don't have to convince the entire humanity. All we need is to continue focusing on this effect and to increase the number of the amount of information, increase the number of people discussing through YouTube, through all the other internet channels, and through chat rooms, and through just talking about this issue, and to get more people discussing the Mandela effect, because when we do reach a critical mass, and we don't know what that critical mass will be, but when we do reach a critical mass of people discussing the Mandela effect, that information will jump to humanity's superconscious, or the collective conscious, or humanity's oversoul, or whatever you want to call it. But the idea is that when you reach a certain number of a certain critical mass, that information will be uploaded automatically to humanity's superconscious, and then it's going to be absolutely obvious for all humanity that the Mandela effect is real, it's happening, and it's here because we are shifting timelines into a better reality. So this is something that is really exciting. You don't have to convince a lot of people. You don't have to convince every person that you come across. You just need to convince, or you just need to discuss the Mandela effect with people that are already seeking, because when we reach the critical mass, then this information is going to be second nature to the whole of humankind. And this is quite interesting. It's quite exciting, and it makes me really happy that we don't need to go into every nook and cranny of the world to convince people of anything. That there is an automatic mechanism that will transfer this knowledge to the whole of humanity when the time is right, when the critical mass is reached. So thank you very much. Please put your comments down below. your comments, your views, your suggestions. Thank you very much for being here. Please like, subscribe, and share, and see you next time. Thank you.